What would you do if the love of your life was about to marry someone else and you had just one chance to stop it? This isn't a movie. It's not a script. It's a real story. And today, it all unfolds in front of a shocked wedding crowd. When Keanu Reeves shows up at a ceremony he was never supposed to attend, but he doesn't come to ruin anything. Or does he? What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we dive into today's emotional roller coaster, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications if you love powerful, true-to-life stories starring icons like Keanu Reeves. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're about humanity, healing, and the moments that remind us what really matters. Now, let's begin. The sun was beginning to set over a charming vineyard in Northern California. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze. Rows of white chairs lined the grass, all facing a simple floral arch. Guests in designer suits and elegant dresses murmured quietly as a classical quartet played softly in the background. It was picture perfect. At the far end of the aisle stood Jason Matthews, the groom. Young, confident, and from a wealthy Los Angeles family, Jason was exactly the kind of man people expected to be standing there. Handsome, composed, and used to getting what he wanted. But if anyone had taken a closer look, they might have noticed the tightness in his jaw. The way he kept glancing toward the entrance, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He wasn't nervous about getting married. He was nervous about who might show up. Because today, standing just beyond the trees, was someone no one had expected. Keanu Reeves. Dressed in a sleek black suit, his hair tied loosely at the back, Keanu stood still, watching the ceremony from a distance. His face was calm, but his eyes held something deeper, something heavy, something unresolved. He hadn't come to crash the wedding. He came for her, Claire Bennett, the bride. She hadn't seen Keanu in over a year. The last time they spoke, it ended in silence and heartbreak. Not because of anger, not because of betrayal, but because life had gotten in the way. She had moved on. Or, at least, she tried to. Now, here she was, standing behind the white curtain inside the main house, moments away from walking down the aisle. Her hair was pinned back in soft curls, the delicate lace of her gown hugging her frame perfectly. She looked stunning, but she didn't feel it. Her chest felt tight, her palms sweaty. And it wasn't just nerves. She thought she had buried those feelings long ago. But as she peeked through the window and saw Keanu standing alone at the edge of the ceremony, everything came rushing back. Meanwhile, guests began to whisper, "Is that Keanu Reeves? What's he doing here?" Jason noticed it too. The shift, the murmurs, the glances toward the trees. And then, Claire stepped out. The music started. Everyone rose, but Keanu didn't move. He just watched her. Watched the woman he once thought he'd spend his life with walk toward someone else. His heart ached, but he didn't come to stop her. He came to give her peace. At least, that's what he thought. Until something happened that no one saw coming. Something that would change everything. The sun dipped lower into the horizon, casting long golden rays across the trees as Keanu stood frozen at the edge of the vineyard. The sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and live music drifted from the reception area nearby. But none of that reached him. All he could see was her, Isabel. She was standing just a few yards away, laughing with a small group of guests. The wind caught her veil slightly, lifting it like a whisper. Her eyes sparkled in the soft evening light. It had been years, years of silence, distance, and unanswered questions. And yet, here she was, a vision of peace and beauty, about to marry someone else. Keanu's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't meant to see her. He had planned to leave the letter with the venue coordinator, maybe catch a glimpse of her from afar, and walk away quietly. No drama, no confrontation. But fate, as it so often does, had other plans. A familiar voice broke his trance. "Keanu?" He turned sharply. It was Thomas, the groom. Tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a crisp cream tuxedo, Thomas was the image of charm. But his smile faltered slightly when he noticed the look on Keanu's face. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Thomas said, his tone light but cautious. Keanu gave a short nod, struggling to find the words. "Yeah, I wasn't sure either." Thomas looked over his shoulder toward Isabel. "She doesn't know you're here, does she?" "No," Keanu replied quietly. "And I'm not planning to interrupt anything. I just had something I needed to say. One last thing. That's all." Thomas studied him for a moment, his jaw tight. "I know what you two had. I know how close you were. She told me. Eventually. I won't pretend it didn't bother me." Keanu looked down, guilt flickering across his face. "It's not about the past. I just wanted her to have closure. Maybe I need it too." There was a silence between them, heavy and unsaid. Then Thomas surprised him. "She deserves peace," he said, voice low. "But if you bring more pain than clarity today, if you say something that makes her question this life we've built—" "I wouldn't do that," Keanu interrupted, calm but firm. "I came here to set her free, not hold her back." Thomas stared at him for a long moment, and then he nodded. "All right, you've got 10 minutes. After that, I need you gone." Keanu nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Thomas turned and walked back toward the reception, leaving Keanu alone beneath the now orange sky. His heart pounded. He could still walk away. He could leave the letter and vanish into the fading light. But something deep inside, some quiet truth, urged him forward. He walked slowly toward the garden path that led to the side of the vineyard. The memories rushed back with every step. The last time he saw her, she was crying. He had broken her heart. Too caught up in his career, too afraid to open up, too uncertain of what he deserved. And she had walked away without slamming the door, just closing it gently. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out the letter. He had rewritten it 5 times, maybe more. Every word felt impossible to get right. What do you say to the person who once meant everything? Just as he turned the corner near the flower arch, there she was, alone for a moment, looking out across the vineyard. The guests had moved to the reception tent. The timing was perfect. Keanu cleared his throat softly. She turned, and her face said it all. Shock, recognition, a flicker of something deeper, something like longing. "Keanu?" she whispered, breathless. He managed a small smile. "Hi, Isabel." She blinked, taking a hesitant step forward. What are you doing here?" He held up the letter. "I wasn't going to stay. I swear. I needed you to have this." She took it slowly, eyes not leaving his. "Is this a goodbye?" Keanu hesitated. "It's the truth." She clutched the letter to her chest, still stunned. "You should go before someone sees." He nodded. "I know." But before he turned to leave, he looked at her one last time. "You look beautiful, Isabel. I mean that." Tears welled in her eyes. She smiled through them. "You always did know how to say the right thing. A little too late." Keanu nodded, his heart aching. Then he turned and walked away, toward the gravel path, the trees, and whatever would come next. Behind him, Isabel stood frozen, the unopened letter trembling in her hands. And just like that, the past came knocking on the day that was supposed to be her future. The vineyard was behind him, but Keanu's mind couldn't leave it. The image of Isabel holding that letter, torn between the past and the life she was about to step into, burned behind his eyes. Every step he took down the gravel path felt heavier than the last. Back in his car, he sat in silence. He didn't start the engine. Did she read it? Did she cry? Would she hate him for showing up? Or be grateful? He leaned back in the driver's seat, staring at the vineyard in the distance as the warm hues of sunset slowly faded into twilight. For a moment, he considered going back, just to see her face one last time. But he knew better. Some goodbyes needed to remain silent. What he didn't know was that Isabel hadn't moved either. She was still standing near the flower arch, the letter unopened in her hand. Guests danced in the distance, laughter echoed across the lawn, and yet she was somewhere else entirely. Finally, with trembling fingers, she opened it. His handwriting, familiar and rough, stared back at her. Isabel, I never knew how to say things when they mattered. Maybe that's why I'm writing instead of standing in front of you. I let you walk away because I thought you deserved someone better. Someone who could be there fully, not half buried in work, not afraid of real love. But the truth is, I wasn't protecting you. I was protecting myself. I was scared. You once told me love wasn't about being ready. It was about being honest. And I couldn't be. Not then. But I've carried you in every quiet moment since. And if I never say it out loud, I want you to at least read it here. I loved you. I still do. And I always will. But this isn't me asking you to come back. This is me letting you go. I hope today is everything you dreamed of, with everything I never said. Keanu. She finished reading and pressed the paper against her heart. The words didn't ask for anything, didn't try to rewrite history. They just told the truth. And that truth hit her harder than she expected. Meanwhile, inside the reception tent, Thomas was searching the crowd. He hadn't seen Isabel in several minutes. He caught sight of her maid of honor and asked where she went. She said she needed air, the woman replied with a shrug. Probably just nerves. Thomas forced a smile, but something felt off. He stepped outside and spotted her immediately, standing alone in the golden hour glow, holding a folded letter with tears in her eyes. His heart sank. He knew. Keanu had found her. He walked over slowly, trying not to startle her. "Belle!" She turned, startled, and quickly wiped at her eyes. "Thomas." He nodded at the letter. "He gave that to you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I didn't know he would come. I swear, I believe you," he said softly. There was a long pause between them. I needed to read it," she whispered. "I didn't expect it to hit me like this." Thomas looked down. "You still love him?" Isabel didn't answer right away. "I don't know," she admitted. "I love you. But what Keanu and I had, it wasn't over when it ended. It just paused. And this letter..." Thomas held up a hand gently. "I get it." She looked up, startled. "You do?" "I know what it's like to wonder what could have been," he said. "And I also know that sometimes people come back not to stay, but to set us free." Her eyes filled again. "Thomas," he smiled, sad but kind. "You don't need to decide anything tonight. All I ask is that when you walk down that aisle, it's because your heart is fully here." Isabel looked down at the letter one more time. Then she folded it, walked to her clutch, and slipped it inside. When she turned back to Thomas, her voice was steadier. "I just needed to remember that someone once loved me so much. They let me go." Thomas took her hand. "Then let's walk forward." As they walked back to the reception hand in hand, Isabel stole one last glance toward the road. Keanu was gone, but his presence lingered in the quiet corners of her heart. And she knew this chapter wasn't about choosing the past or the present. It was about honoring both. The sky had gone from gold to deep blue. Somewhere in the vineyard, laughter echoed, glasses clinked, and music floated softly through the evening air. But Keanu wasn't there to hear it. He sat alone in his car, parked along a quiet hill overlooking the venue. Headlights off, engines silent, and his heart unsettled. He stared at the wedding in the distance, twinkling lights dancing across white tents and rows of chairs. He imagined her walking down that aisle, smiling, laughing, becoming someone else's forever. He should have driven away by now, but something held him there. Maybe it was the letter. Maybe it was the hope, the foolish, selfish hope that she'd come out running, that she'd look for him, that somehow, just somehow, after all this time, she still felt what he felt. But she didn't come. And Keanu? He finally understood. This was his closure. Not because she came back, but because he was still here, and still okay. He reached over and opened the glove compartment, pulling out an old Polaroid. The two of them, years ago, laughing, wine glasses in hand, sunlight bouncing off her hair. He stared at it for a moment before sliding it back in, whispering, "You'll always be part of me." Then he turned the key in the ignition, and that's when his phone buzzed, a text, from a number he didn't recognize. She read it, she cried, "She's okay." "Thomas." Keanu stared at the screen. He hadn't expected this. A message from the man marrying the woman he once loved. But something about it brought peace. He typed back 2 words, "Thank you." Then he hit send, and finally pulled away from the hill, the headlights glowing dimly in the night as he drove down the empty road. Back at the reception, the vows had begun. Isabel stood before Thomas, the setting sun painting her in soft amber light. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from everything she'd finally let go. And when it was her turn to speak, she paused, looked out at the crowd, took a breath. Then she said, "Before I say my vows, I want to thank someone who isn't here tonight." The audience stirred. "Someone who reminded me," she continued, "that love doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means letting go, with grace. And that letting go doesn't erase what was real. It honors it." There were soft gasps, a few teary eyes. Thomas stood beside her, steady and proud. Isabel smiled at him and finished, "And because of that, I can give my heart fully to you." Applause broke out. The vows continued. And beneath the twinkle lights and string quartet melodies, a wedding unfolded. Beautiful, honest, whole. But in another part of town, Keanu Reeves sat in a small diner. He sipped coffee slowly, lost in thought. Across the room, a young couple laughed over a shared slice of pie. Keanu watched them for a moment, then turned his gaze toward the window. Outside, the city buzzed, alive with 1,000 untold stories. A waitress walked by and refilled his cup. She smiled, probably unaware of who he really was. "Long day?" she asked kindly. Keanu smiled back, genuine, soft. "No," he said, "just a meaningful one." She nodded and walked away. And in that quiet moment, Keanu realized something. Love wasn't always about endings or beginnings. Sometimes it was about the spaces in between, the unspoken goodbyes, the silent blessings, and the peace that comes when you know you did the right thing, even when it hurts. Before we close this story, take a deep breath and think. Have you ever had to let go of someone you loved deeply? Not because you stopped caring, but because you cared enough to let them be happy? If this story has stirred something inside you, take a second to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. These stories remind us we're not alone in the things we feel, but they only live on if you're here to feel them too. Now, back to our final chapter. A week had passed, a full 7 days since the wedding, since the letter, since Keanu quietly disappeared into the night. No headlines, no drama, just the kind of exit only a man like Keanu Reeves could make. Silent, graceful, unspoken. But something lingered. Not regret, not loss, but peace. Because this story wasn't about winning someone back. It was about honoring love, even when it didn't look the way it used to. Keanu sat in a cozy bookstore cafe, tucked into a quiet corner with a black notebook and a coffee. His long hair was tied loosely, his beard showing streaks of gray. He looked calm, older, wiser. He scribbled a few lines in his notebook. Nothing for a movie, nothing for the public. Just thoughts. Private memories of laughter in vineyards, midnight drives, and hands once held. Across the room, a young woman approached cautiously. "Excuse me, are you Keanu Reeves?" He looked up, smiling gently. "Yeah." Her hands trembled slightly. "Sorry, I wanted to thank you. Not for the movies, for the stories, the way you speak about life. It helped me through something I didn't think I'd survive." Keanu's smile widened, touched. He stood and offered a soft handshake. "Thank you. That means more than you know." She nodded, tears threatening in her eyes, and walked away. And in that moment, Keanu realized something profound. The love we give never disappears, even when it's not returned the way we hoped. It lives on, in the people we inspire, in the kindness we show, in the quiet moments where we choose compassion over ego. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Isabel stood alone on her balcony, the city lights flickering beneath her. She clutched something in her hands, a letter. Keanu's letter. She read it again, the words now familiar, but still powerful. "I didn't come to win you back. I came to honor what we had, and to say goodbye in the only way I know how, by showing up for the moment, not the outcome. You once told me real love is quiet. I finally understand what you meant. Be happy. Be loved. And remember, some endings are just the beginning of something beautiful. Always, Keanu." She wiped a tear from her cheek. Behind her, Thomas called out, "You coming?" She smiled, folded the letter carefully, and slipped it into a drawer. "Yeah, just needed a minute." And that was the truth. Not a minute to grieve, but a minute to appreciate the kind of love that doesn't need a name or a title. Just a memory. Back at the cafe, Keanu closed his notebook and stood. The night was cool, the streets quiet. As he walked home, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Thank you. For the letter. For everything. I'll always carry it with me." He stared at it for a moment, then typed one final response. "I know. That's all I ever needed." He pocketed the phone, kept walking. No fanfare, no flash. Just a man, moving forward, with grace and with gratitude. Because in the end, some stories don't need perfect endings, just honest ones. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments below. What would you have done in Keanu's place? And if you believe in stories that speak to the soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us tomorrow for another powerful moment. Right here on Legends and Stories. Because sometimes the quietest stories are the ones that stay with us forever.